sure it's not going to make or break things, but what kind of benefit does this team have now this year starting at home compared to last year?
Yeah, the interesting thing is like both teams have almost identical travel over the year, right? So they got a team, they got Calgary, we got Tampa. It's another two teams in one province, two teams in one state, and then everything else is a long flight. So they're used to it. It's part of how they operate. It's the same with us getting on a plane for 5 hours. You probably wouldn't sign up for it, but we all know how to deal with it. So I don't know if there's an advantage. Both teams got kind of almost the identical time off, so that makes it, which is good. It's fair. It's right.
Paul, I've spoke to a few guys about this, just in terms of you guys have played in some crazy buildings through the playoffs this year, but now you're heading up to Edmonton. It's probably going to be nuts because it's a Canadian team in the final. Just how do you guys prepare for that so much, and what do you expect this to mean for not just Edmonton fans, but for the entire country of Canada?
Well, there's lots of people watching hockey straight into June up there, right? And it's a big part, clearly, of the fabric of life. If it was a 40,000 seat arena, they could probably fill it for an event like this. Every city thinks they got the loudest building. They do, and theirs is going to be loud. Ours is going to be loud. I think we're 6 weeks in, and it's our second tour going to the final. I don't think it has much of an impact at all. Like sometimes you get a little bit of a bump from being on the road because it's just you. There's that great camaraderie that it feels like the crowd's all jacked up and feels like it's just you. And so I don't. It's going to be loud. It's going to be great energy for sure. I just don't think it's something we haven't felt already.
Paul, we know what your guys' defense is able to do. We know what their offense is able to do. Just the best on best battle at the biggest stage, just to see that matchup playing out in the final.
And I'll end up answering questions like that for the whole week. But the interesting thing is they're a way better defensive team than, like, their defensive analytics are almost as good as ours. We're a way better offensive team than people know as well. So it's both sides of the puck. You have to defend against the whole group, active back end, clearly superstars up front. And then we got some really good players too. So it's both sides of the puck equally weighted. We play an aggressive defensive game when we don't have the puck, and I think we attack pretty smartly when we do. I feel the same way about their game. Their defensive game is far stronger, far more structured than I think I hear when I'm watching the games or I read about.
Paul, with 5 days, where your opponent between now and Saturday, how do you split, I guess, time between working on things that you want to improve for your own team, game planning for Edmonton, and I guess trying to avoid being like overloaded with information?
Yeah, I think part of it is you relate to what you've learned. So we'll take the Edmonton Oilers game, and try to attach it to other teams that we've played. If they run the same D zone, if they're trapping, 1-3-1, whatever it is that they do, we've seen it before, and we have a plan for that, and we'll just kind of try to draw those connections with our players. We're going to run it like this, like we did in the past. Well, this is our neutral zone. This is what we're looking for in the D zone. And then after that, like, it's almost all video now. Like, you're 2 years into your program. We got a pretty good idea what we're trying to do. We're not going to be running any heavy systems drills out there. It's about getting the body, making sure that you stay sharp, and then getting them to feel good going into the series opener.
You ever been to a Tim Hortons?
Not sure what
I
that
think they have
refers
those in Edmonton. They're kind of.
Do you want me to pick you up some beans or something?
Oh, I'd
Bring it
like
back
some,
up?
anything I'll take. Speaking of that, a couple years ago in Winnipeg, you guys made it to the Western Finals, and there was some talk about, oh my gosh, Winnipeg playing for the.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of more pressure on Edmonton that they're carrying? Aside from Calgary, the entire country is probably behind them to win this cup. I mean, did you feel any of that in Winnipeg being a step away?
You know what? It would be an interesting if you go to Calgary and ask.
Well, that's what I meant.
I don't know what the answer is there. Are they cheering for the Oilers or are they cheering for the Panthers? Right? Go to Tampa. I don't think they're cheering for the Panthers. So it will be electric in that town. It's not a huge city. It's a major city in Canada, but it's not an $8 million. It's not New York. But every single person that'll be wired in for their home team and be fired up. It'll be electric, and that's what you want, right? If you get to the final, you want it to be a big stage. You want it to be important. So we'll have two countries watching their teams play, and it should be great.
So last 4 months, Forslings had a baby, signed a new 8-year deal, bought a new house, and now he's back in the finals.
Mm.
How do you feel that he's handling everything that's going on for him right now?
I think it goes to the kind of guy, because none of those things have to be negative distractions, right? They should be brilliantly phenomenal things. You get married, you have a kid, you secure your future, you buy yourself a place to live, and it turns out he's playing by far the best hockey of his life, right? The best of his career. He's peaked. Hopefully he can stay there for about 8 years. But that goes to how he got there. He had to work every day without a guarantee that it was going to turn out like this. So 5 years ago, when he's scratching and clawing to be in the league, his character's formed, or it's proven. So when the good things come from all the hard work, it doesn't distract him from the game. He's been brilliant.
To go back to the point on Calgary, Tampa, do you think Toronto's rooting for anybody in this series?
You know what? I got one team I got to worry about, one
I
city.
know.
I'm going to have to answer a bunch of questions about another team in another city. I'm not doing
It
any
wasn't a
other-
real question.
I appreciate that.
This is a semi-real one, though. People that just look at stats would look at Matthew Tkachuk's numbers and say, only 26 goals, only 88 points. He went down in this, down in this, down in this. We all see the player that he is. Where has his game matured in these 2 years here with you? Where do you, I guess, why should people have, for people that just look at numbers, why should they have a greater appreciation than just what the stat sheet says about Matthew Tkachuk?
You just have to look at some different numbers, and that's 92 points to 110 year over. We're a much better hockey team this year than we were last year. When we had three critical pieces out of our lineup in the early part of the year, his numbers weren't great, but his defensive numbers were really good. He's a leader in there, so the culture and the shape of our team, he has a major impact on that. The biggest growth, by far, probably worth looking at the numbers, and in order to do it, you would have to sub out a number of aberrations, is his discipline in his game. He's just not in the penalty box anymore, and I would say straight through November and into January last year he was. I mean, he was a Tasmanian devil out there. Spent a lot of time in the dog pound. Like he is just not. Now, he went, I believe, and you guys will check this, but last year from around mid-January to the end, I think he had 6 minors. And then his brother rolled into town, or we rolled into Ottawa, and he had 17 minutes. So the numbers at the end, you go, wow, he still has 100 minutes, whatever. But when you look at it, there's only 4 or 5 inflection points over the course of the year where there's a blip on the radar. But that would also be in a game. We play a fairly physical game of hockey, that when we play another team that's wound up for that game, that's when the referees start tossing everybody out on 10s. So we got a whole bunch of guys with 10s, and that usually isn't us. But nobody's going to believe me. But if you go back and look at them, those weren't fires we started. We got some physical hits on teams. Their 3 or 4 opponents before us maybe weren't particularly physical teams, so they're offended, or they're just wired, and we get a bunch of refs start throwing everybody. When you take a sub out the 10s, Matthew Tkachuk has been an exceptionally disciplined hockey player.
One quick follow-up, sorry. It's old history now, but that moment with Pasta, how much did you find yourself enjoying that?
Only if you win, man. Like I appreciate. There's some rehashing we can do maybe when this thing's all over, but I would say there was 2 willing combatants. That wasn't the other guy had his gloves off first, and I don't know, this is too obscure, but anyway, Jerome McGinley got in a fight in Calgary in the playoffs last year, or years ago. Might have been the year they lost to Tampa. Oh my God, they went 3 weeks on, should the skilled players fight? Is this a good thing? It's a terrible thing. it's two leaders on two teams since, and I think the score was pretty good for our team at that point of the game, wasn't it? Yeah. I think we got up big on that, and then there was another scrum, and we ended up taking the extra penalty in front of our net. And then the fight happened after that, and I don't know that Matthew was looking for it. We're up big in that game. They're running, they're doing, I had no problem with what they're doing. They're trying to finish every check. Game's over. They're trying to get a pound. Two guys wanted to go at it. I think our guy kind of came out on top on that one, so it was good. But then I didn't think about it again. Like, it was good, but it wasn't something we put on the video and showed 10 times. Now, all you had to do was turn your TV on and find out who the evil man Sam Bennett was, and Matthew Tkachuk starting fires all over, and that's just not what happened.
Can't let you get out of here without asking about Connor McDavid. What makes him anything in
I thought it was
particular?
first one coming in. And
Yeah,
of
course.
Sometimes
We
when
tricked you.
Game that, I kind of work on an answer, but I don't have one.
Okay. Well, anything in particular that you have to guard against as you draw up how to defend him? And do you expect a little cat and mouse with matching up against his line?
Well, we spent some time up there in Winnipeg, and we saw a bunch of different rotations, whether the Leon Draisaitl plays with Connor McDavid or not, and that changes some of the dynamics of what you got to prepare for. But these two men, you can't play a one-on-one game with them. They're just too fast, too strong, too skilled. So it's a 5-man defensive game, and everything else that's kind of come out of my mouth would be a cliche. But sometimes there's a reason for it, right? Those cliches stick around because they're true. Can't do anything to generate offense for Edmonton. They're going to generate their own. And we have to be mindful of the position that we are in on change of possessions. But we can't be in a passive position worried about that